Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Shavua Tov. Welcome to our daily shir. Thank you very much to Raya and Mordechai Meltz who are helping us provide you with these videos. We are in Parsha Yitro, very special Parsha. We are going to be learning about Matan Torah, Hashem giving us the Torah finally after many Parshiyos. The Am Yisrael are waiting for to receive the Torah. Finally, we actually do receive the Torah, and it was a very interesting story, what happened there at that time, and we're going to be talking a bit about what happened there, what it means to us today, what is Baalei Tshuva, what are tzaddikim. We're going to be talking about seeing things and hearing things, the difference between the two, what is better, what is the idea of witnessing something. So I would like to start with the way that the Torah describes what actually happened during Matan Torah. And there were quite a few miracles from the basic event that Hashem came down to this world and he actually gave us the Torah. It's something that did not happen since the times when HaKadosh Baruch Hu created a perfect world and we chased him out of this perfect world. And it took quite a few generations to bring him back down to our world. Abraham took part. He was the first of our forefathers, Yitzchak, Yaakov, and so on. Until Moshe Rabbeinu came, he was the 7th generation. And he came down here to the world and basically brought Hashem back to earth. Unfortunately, that did not last long. Am Yisrael sinned with the golden calf, and we'll talk about it hopefully in one of the other shiurim. But the fact is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu couldn't stay here for long. In Tanya, the Alter Rebbe describes the time where Hashem was here in the world as a mini Moshiach, which means it was a short period of time where Hashem actually was in the world, and it was the world was complete. The world was complete, and it's similar to what will be when Mashiach will come, but only that when Mashiach will come, it will be permanent. Matan Torah was just temporary, and it did not last for long. But that is the feeling that we are going to have while Mashiach comes. So what exactly did they feel there? What happened there in Matan Torah? What did Am Yisrael go through? What were their feelings? So the Torah describes something very interesting. The Pasuk says the follows. The Pasuk says, V'chol ha'am ro'im es ha'kolos ve'es halapidi. The entire nation sees the voices and the torches, the lapidim. Interesting. So there are two opinions about what exactly happened. We have Rabbi Yishmael on one hand and Rabbi Akiva on the other. Rabbi Yishmael tells us that everything was like nature, like Hashem created the world, and what they saw was the torches. They did not see the voices. Rabbi Akiva says that there was something very interesting that happened. Am Yisrael started to see voices, and they started to hear what they usually would see. In the words of Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael, Rabbi Akiva says, they were royin es hanishma. They saw what you usually hear. The shomin es hanire, and they used to hear what you usually see. In other words, the torches, they heard the torches. They did not see them. And the voices, they were able to see the voices. V'chol ha'am roim es hakolos. That is Rabbi Akiva. In other words, there was an extra miracle that occurred during Matan Torah. This amazing change of nature when Am Yisrael were able to see what we usually can only hear, seeing voices. Today, if someone would say that he can see voices, they'll send him immediately to get checked by a psychiatrist, because it's one of the signs that something's wrong. But then there was a special miracle that the nature actually changed. Rabbi Ishmael doesn't say that. That's only the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Ishmael said that nature continued like it was before. And what you could see, you could only see. And what you could hear, you could strictly hear, but nothing more than that. So what we're going to talk about is the meaning of seeing something and hearing. What is the idea behind witnessing? So we know that in the world there's physical and there's spiritual. Something physical you could actually see, because we are material creatures. We are what we call in Hasidut Gashmiyim, which means that we relate to things that we could actually feel and see. That is something that is that connects to us deeply, because when I can see something, I can know 100% that it's true. When I hear something, that's also good. I'm also connecting to it, but on a lower level. And when I hear something, sometimes people could deny what you heard. I would like to give you an example. Can a witness become a judge or not? Do you think that is just, that a witness would be also the judge? Is that right to do so? Or maybe someone that witnessed what happened, he cannot judge the situation. So Chazal tell us that a witness cannot be a judge. For one simple reason. Once you saw something, you are bought. That's it. If someone sees something, he's convinced 100% he can't be objective, he can't be neutral anymore. He already chose a side, the side that whatever he saw. No one can convince you. If you happen to see something, even if it's something miraculous, something that does not make sense, if you happen to see something like that, what happens? No one can take that away from you. No matter how many people will come and explain to you that this couldn't happen. Seeing an angel, that the things like that don't happen. And probably what you saw is a reflection of the sun on the clouds or something like that, and you saw as if it is an angel. If you happen to see something like that, you are fully convinced that that is what happened. That's why a witness cannot be a judge. The judge has to be, he can't pick a side. So basically so let's bring it into spiritual terms. Okay, so when we talk about Hashem is something we can't see. Hashem is something that always people would debate and ask, does he exist? Does he not exist? That's something that we could hear about. We could understand. We could talk about it. There are logical ideas behind it, for it and against it, and so on. Elokut, godliness in the world, is something that usually we cannot see. On the other hand, when we are talking about physical objects in the world, gashmios, like the trees, like the table, like the wall in front of us, those are things that we could see, and we are fully convinced that they exist, right? Because we can see them. It's not something we heard about or we understand that exists, right? When you, by mistake, touch something hot, so it's sore and it's painful. The reason for that is because you are convinced 100% that it exists. And if you, by mistake, bump into the wall or bump into a chair, so the chair is there and there's no doubt about it. When we're talking about spiritual things, we can't see spiritual things. Spiritual things are things that we could only hear about. This reminds me of a story once in Russia during the Soviet Union, when the teachers always used to teach not to believe in God. And once the teacher was saying to the students, well, there is no God in the world, chas v'shalom, The proof is that you can't see him. Whatever you can't see does not exist. So one of the Jewish students, he was quite a clever student, so he turns to the student and he tells them, well, our teacher has no brains. Why? Because you can't see her brains. So probably what you can't see, that's something that does not exist. That's a story that's told about that time and that generation. But the idea is that, of course, the brain exists, but it's on a different level. To us, we can connect more to the idea that the body exists in the brain, because we could see the body, the brain, we only see evidence of the brain, which means we could see that the brain takes certain makes certain decisions and influences certain things, right? Or we could feel it, but the person in front of us can't always feel it, but he could see you. So to make it simple, when we have sight, that's something we connect to on a deeper level. Hearing is something that we also connect to, but on a lower level. And that's why Gashmius, we connect to much more, because that's something we could see. Ruchnius, spirituality, that is something that we cannot see, and therefore we don't connect to it as strongly as we do to Gashmius, to physical things in the world. And that's why this is a known thing, that people take care of the physical life sometimes much more than a spiritual life. And people sometimes don't realize that, first of all, it goes together. You can't only take care of one part of yourself. And this is something that the Rebbe always used to tell people. And it's something very important, because we are physical. That's why sometimes we don't attend to our spiritual part, to our soul. And they go together. Mitzvahs are here to cure our soul, to feed our soul. Sometimes what happens, people feel upset, people feel incomplete, people feel that they do not accomplish enough, and they are thirsty for achievements. Why is that? That's because there's another part to them. It's not only about drinking water and eating food every day, but your soul has to drink water and eat food every single day. And that's not less important. It might even be more important. That's why, by the way, in Eretz Yisrael, one of the reasons that in the happiness, there's a certain rate. It's called Madad HaOsher. There's a certain rate where they try and rate they try to measure the amount of joy and happiness and fulfillment that people have. And Israel is always one of the highest places. They're more than other countries and more than peaceful countries, even though life here is very, very intense. One of the reasons here is because we have a spiritual need that a lot of the people here always try and feed that need by doing mitzvot, by taking care of other people. Even the basic ideas of common care, which even people that don't observe 100% Torah and mitzvot, but the idea of helping other people is something that is very popular in Israel, and that's what fills us with a true good feeling, and that's why we are happy. So let's go back to what happened there during Matan Torah. Hashem doesn't do miracles randomly. He doesn't bring extra miracles. Hashem wasn't saying, well, I've got a nice show going on there, giving out the Torah. Let's add a bit of miracles. Let's bring the shofar. Let's bring those torches, and let's change nature. Let's make nature now the opposite, that people could see sounds and hear sights. Hashem didn't do that stuff. That was a result of Matan Torah itself. What Matan Torah brought to the world is it changed the nature. In those days, spirituality, godliness was something so far that we could only hear about. It was like a far away something that people, as a Jew by the name of Avraham, that he claims that Hashem exists. That was something so far, and people did not relate to it. What happened was that during Matan Torah, Hashem changed nature. He said that instead of hearing about me, from now onwards, you'll be able to see me. That is the idea behind this miracle. The miracle changed things. The miracle said that, you know what? Today, instead of just seeing physical, which means relating to the physical part of the world on a high level, you won't feel that anymore. You won't have that. The physical part of the world would be just a random thing that you would hear about. What you would see is Hashem. You would see godliness. You would see how Hashem gives power to everything in the world in order for the world to actually exist. That is the idea behind changing the nature. That is what Rabbi Akiva told us. He said that, you know what? Usually what happens is, until now, what you see is the physical part, and what you hear about is the spiritual part. Let's change things. From now onwards, you would see Hashem and you would hear about the needs of your body. By the way, that's what's going to happen during when Mashiach will come. That's the idea when Mashiach will come, right? We said at the beginning that this period of Matan Torah was a small time when Mashiach was here. It didn't last for long, unfortunately. But when Mashiach will be here, we'll be able to see God, see godliness in the world. And that would take the majority of our attention, and the needs of the physical part of the world, or the physical part generally, we'll hear about that only, which means we won't deeply connect to that. That is the idea behind the opinion of Rabbi Akiva. But then we have Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael did not change things. Rabbi Ishmael claims that nature stays, which means the idea behind Matan Torah, the idea behind Hashem giving us the Torah, is not that we are going to change nature. Changing nature isn't always the best thing to do. Let's keep the world the way it is, and in that limited world, let's observe mitzvot. That is the idea of Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael doesn't change the nature. Rabbi Ishmael doesn't say, well, from now onwards, you'll be able to see Hashem and things will be much easier. He said, no, things will stay tough. Things will stay hard. The physical part of the world, you'll be able to see. The spiritual, you can't see. And nevertheless, we'll still make sure to observe mitzvot. Just before, we'll talk about these two personalities, Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Will explain to us a bit more about their opinions. But this is basically the argument between Rabbi Ishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Do we change nature? Is it all about making it easier? By the way, this is an idea that it would be much easier for us. It's going to be much easier for us to observe mitzvot when Mashiach will come. Easy life. It says in Hayom Yom, this amazing book, it says that we will miss the times of the Golus. We'll actually miss those times. Why are we going to miss those times? What is so bad about living in the Mashiach days? Truth is, because things will be easier. And sometimes we appreciate the challenge. And if things are going to be easier in that time, why? Because we could see godliness. Well, when we wake up in the morning, the first thing to do is to go and daven, go and learn, of course. We can see how Hashem creates the world. We can see the purpose of the world. And therefore, what we are going to do is we're going to strictly devote ourselves towards spirituality, towards godliness, towards doing what Hashem actually wants from us. And it's going to be so easy. But we are going to miss the times when it was hard. And that is Rabbi Ishmael. Rabbi Ishmael says we've got to now appreciate the world the way it is, with this weird nature where we can't see Hashem. We could only see physical part of the world. And we relate much more to the physical part of the world. That's why when we wake up in the morning, the first thing we do is we go and make ourselves a cup of coffee, because we are material people, and that's nature, and that's how it should be. But in that nature, Matan Torah teaches us to add a Hasidus book in front of you while you are drinking that cup of coffee. To drink that cup of coffee in order to daven afterwards. That is the idea behind Rabbi Ishmael. Let's talk a bit about the personalities of these two big Tanoim, amazing Tanoim, Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Ishmael. Let's start with Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was a Baal Tshuva. And the famous story about Rabbi Akiva, that he was a shepherd, and he was going there with the sheep, and he sees this drops of water that caused some kind of dent in the rock, and that convinced him to change. He told himself, he was 40 years old. He never learned a single word. He married the daughter of one of the richest people in Jerusalem, Kalba Savua. Kalba Savua saw that. He told his daughter, you're not going to see one penny of my money. You're marrying this Burva Amaret. You are marrying this person that does not know a word in Torah, that all he is a shepherd. You're not going to see a penny of my money. Rabbi Akiva goes out. He does not give up. He sees the rock. He sees the water that caused the dent in a rock. And he said, if water can change the rock, then Torah can change me. And he started learning at the age of 40. And he brought, after 24 years, he brought home 24,000 students that learned Torah from him. That was Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was the Chozer B'Tshuva, the ultimate Baal Tshuva. Amazing. Rabbi Akiva, that is his whole approach, changing nature. If Rabbi Akiva would go on with the regular nature, he would stay a shepherd. He had the power to change his lifestyle, to change his nature, and therefore for him, when he looks at Matan Torah, what does he tell himself? Matan Torah was all about changing nature. That's what he lived. That's the way he believed. And that was the way that he taught his students. And that was the way that he saw Matan Torah. He said Matan Torah is all about changing your perspective. Because that's what he lived. He lived in a way where he needed to suddenly change the way he was thinking, the way he was acting. He changed from being a shepherd into a Talmid Chacham. Before, the physical part of the world was close to him. That was the only thing he saw and witnessed. The spiritual part was some random thought or some random thing that he heard about Talmidei Chachamim that sit in the Beis Midrash all day and learn Torah. It did not mean much to him at all. But he changed nature. And that's why when he goes and he learns about Matan Torah and he sees that Am Yisrael, they were able to witness the sounds that made total sense to him. He said, well, that is exactly what happened to me. At one point in my life, I changed my nature. I started to watch. I started to see godliness in the world. So that is Rabbi Akiva, and that's why his opinion is that what happened in Matan Torah was that they could see the voices. They started to see godliness in the world. Things were much easier after nature changed. Rabbi Ishmael, on the contrary, Rabbi Ishmael was a Kohen Gadol. He was a tzaddik. Rabbi Ishmael Kohen Gadol. What an amazing Tana. Rabbi Ishmael saw things in a straight way. He went according to nature. He went according to nature because he knew how to deal with it. From the moment he was born, he observed Torah, he observed mitzvahs, he studied Torah. Things might be a bit challenging. He couldn't see God in it, but he was born in a different way. He was born in a way that he could naturally connect to Hashem. These two personalities relate to us a lot also. We know in our world there are many, many Baalei Tshuva. And there are many people, the second generation, the children of those Baalei Tshuva. For them, things are natural. They didn't need to change their nature. And there's a mashal that Tanya brings, and the Tanya talks about food a bit. It's interesting. Tanya talks about two types of food that represent these two characters, these two movements, the Baalei Tshuva and the Tzaddikim. Both of them are very good. Each one has his approach. And that's why there's a room to both of these opinions. The Tanya says that the Tzaddik, he is like sweet food, right? Sweet food is something you don't need to fix. Naturally, it's sweet, honey, sugar, etc., cakes, and those things are sweet. There's nothing to fix in them. Naturally, honey is sweet. Then there's sweet and sour or spicy foods that they represent the Baalei Tshuva because they might be spicy, but when you fix them in the right way, they are even better and they're more tasty than sweet food. People don't like just simple sweet food. People like to have some kind of interesting taste, some kind of a spicy taste, but it's got to be the correct amount. It's got to be done in the right way. So those two types of food are Baalei Tshuva, Tzaddikim, Rabbi Yishmael, and Rabbi Akiva. In the words of Kabbalah, we use the terms Or Yashar and Or Chozer. The straight light and a returning light. What is the difference between the two? What is a straight light and a returning light? So literally, it means that there's some kind of, or in other words, there's a mirror that you could see through and a mirror that reflects back. So it's like a window where you could see down to the street, and there's a mirror that reflects you. The Baalei Tshuva, they are Or Chozer, a returning light. That's like a mirror where you look to the glass and it reflects you back. It reveals who you really are. Then there's a straight light, which is the window without any covering, and you see directly through the window to outside. This is the idea, to summarize it, behind the idea of Matan Torah itself. What did Hashem do when he gave us the Torah? Did he change nature for that moment? Or did he keep nature as it is, but nevertheless gave us the mitzvot to interfere in nature and to elevate the nature? Those are Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Yishmael's opinions. We learned a bit about the characters of Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva was the Baal Tshuva. He was able to change his nature at the age of 40. And Rabbi Yishmael was a tzaddik. He was a Kohen Gadol. He was born already observant. These are the two characters, and this is what it means to us in our lives today, because everyone has to do tshuva. Everyone should be zeicha to become Baalei Tshuva. We could all learn that even if we can't see godliness in the world, but at least be able to relate to it on a strong level, and through observing mitzvot, we could actually change our nature and change the world around us. Thank you very, very much for taking part in the shiur today, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all, Be'ezrat Hashem, on Sunday next week, 9:30 here at Chabad of Rechavia. And thanks again to Raya and Mordechai Meltz. Shavua Tov.